For 7 days and 7 nights, the British guns have not stopped. 1.5 million shells have come down on the German lines above the River Somme, the heaviest bombardment any army had ever fired. And the men crouched in the British trenches have been promised, from the generals downward, that nothing on the far side is still alive. The wire will be cut. The dugouts will be graves. The infantry will walk over and take what remains. It is the 1st of July, 1916, a clear midsummer morning in Picardy, and along a 25-kilometer front, 120,000 British soldiers are waiting for 7:30. In a forward trench opposite the fortified village of La Boisselle, one of those soldiers does not belong to 1916. He is an infantryman of the 2020s, in ceramic plate armor and a ballistic helmet, carrying a short black carbine that no armory in Europe could explain. No door in time will be described here, because the morning is about to ask a sharper question than how he arrived. When the whistles blow, he goes over the top with everyone else. What one man cannot do should be said plainly before the barrage lifts. He cannot win the Battle of the Somme. The battle is a machine of 1 million men and several thousand guns, and it will do what it is going to do. The question he can answer is narrower and, in its own way, harder. A century of soldiering separates him from the men beside him. Better armor, better weapons, better medicine, better training. The first day of the Somme is about to put a price on that century, in his own survival, in the survival of the men around him, and in meters of France. By midnight, the price will be exact. One thing makes this collision unlike any comfortable daydream about modern soldiers among the ancients. The Western Front is the first battlefield in history that outguns its visitor. He carries 210 rounds. The artillery behind him has fired 1.5 million shells in a week, and the army in front of him fields thousands of machine guns, each pushing out more lead in a minute than he carries on his entire body. Against Rome or the Mongols, a man from the future brings the storm with him. Here the storm is already overhead. It belongs to everyone, and his advantages will have to be quieter ones: precision, protection, medicine, and the permission to think for himself. The soldier of 1916 standing next to him carries close to 30 kilograms into the attack: rifle and bayonet, 220 rounds, rations, a shovel, sandbags, wire cutters, a rolled ground sheet, and whatever else his battalion decided the far side would require. A load so heavy that climbing out of the trench needs steps cut into the chalk. The man from the future carries almost exactly the same weight, spent on different bets. Ceramic plates over his chest and back, rated to stop the German rifle's bullet outright. A helmet that turns glancing hits and shell splinters. A carbine with a magnified optic, 210 rounds, and a handful of grenades. A medical kit holding tourniquets, hemostatic gauze, and antibiotics. A protective mask he will not need today, though the men of this front will need theirs soon enough. Night vision, useless until dark, riding at the bottom of his pack. Two armies, 100 years apart, both loaded their infantry to the limit of what a man can carry. Only one of those loads can stop a bullet. At 7:20, 10 minutes ahead of schedule, the mine under Hawthorne Ridge erupts a few kilometers to the north. 40,000 pounds of explosive announcing to every German officer on the front that the infantry are coming. At 7:28, the ground opposite La Boisselle lifts twice more, and the larger of the two blasts, 60,000 pounds of ammunition packed beneath a strongpoint, was reportedly heard in London. At 7:30, the barrage rolls off the German front line. The whistles sound from one end of the front to the other, and the first wave climbs into the sunlight. In most sectors, the men have been ordered to advance in extended lines at a steady walk. Spacing kept, bayonets fixed, because a walking line is easy to control, and because the plan says there is nothing left alive worth hurrying for. 9 meters down in the chalk, in dugouts the shells never reached, men who have spent 7 days in the dark pick up their machine guns and race up the stairways. The first day of the Somme is decided by that race, and the Germans win it. The modern soldier does the single most valuable thing his century taught him, and it looks like nothing at all. He refuses to walk. While the lines around him step off at parade pace, he is out of the trench low and fast, moving in 3-second rushes from shell hole to shell hole, spaced well away from any cluster of men, exactly as he was trained by wars in which everyone on Earth has machine guns. For these first minutes, the fight is decided by doctrine rather than armor. The German gunners, presented with thousands of slow, upright, evenly spaced targets, have no reason to spend a belt on one man doing something strange down in the craters. The Maxims open along the whole front within minutes, firing on lines their crews taped out months ago, and the walking waves begin to fall in rows. This is the part of the battle where the visitor comes close to untouchable. A Maxim crew is devastating against a line, and nearly blind against a single prone man 400 meters away in a crater. He, in turn, can see them perfectly. Through a modern optic, a muzzle flash in a loophole is an address, and aimed semi-automatic fire into that loophole is a delivery. One round where a gunner's face has to be is worth more than a battalion's volley. He silences a gun, shifts craters before anyone can register the direction, and silences another. Twice, German riflemen find him first, and twice the answer arrives as a hard punch across the chest plate, a bruise instead of an obituary. On his 100 meters of front, the wave behind him gets farther than any wave for a kilometer in either direction, because the guns that should be traversing across them keep going quiet. Then the German army demonstrates why this front will take 4 more months to move a handful of kilometers. Every silenced gun is replaced within minutes from the dugouts below it. Every strong point he cannot see holds more, arranged in a defense 2 years deep. His 210 rounds are a rounding error against that system, and marksmanship reaches no farther than his own small corner of the battle. The division attacking La Boisselle will end this day with the heaviest losses of any division on the front. At 9:15, several kilometers north at Beaumont-Hamel, the Newfoundland Regiment is sent forward from a support trench across 700 meters of open ground, alone, in daylight, into gun positions the bombardment never touched. Of roughly 800 men, 68 answer roll call the next morning. The dead include 14 pairs of brothers. Their entire battle lasts about 30 minutes, and nothing the man opposite La Boisselle carries could reach across those kilometers to change 1 second of it. And then the German artillery arrives, and the century of advantages begins to shrink. The counter-barrage comes down on no man's land, and the British front line on schedule, onto coordinates registered long ago, because both sides always knew exactly where an attack would have to cross. Roughly 6 of every 10 men killed in this war are killed by shells, and shells do not check the date on a man's equipment. Here, the technical details matter. Shrapnel, the airburst shell that showers lead balls downward at musket speeds, was the great man-killer of the walking line era. And against lead balls, his plates, his soft armor, and his helmet come close to a full answer. Splinters that would have opened a 1916 tunic leave welts on him. High explosive is a different animal. A 15-centimeter shell landing close does its work through blast, through the air itself, and ceramic has no argument to offer pressure. What he holds against artillery is the same thing he held against the Maxims: judgment, reading the rhythm of the salvos, moving between concentrations, staying flat, staying alone, never joining the bunched and terrified groups that draw fire. Against the bullets of 1916, he is a man from the future. Against the shells of 1916, he is a man, and every hour spent above ground rolls dice that no equipment can load. By mid-morning, the attack on his sector is wreckage, and the largest number of this day has not even begun to arrive. The private horror of the 1st of July is that its wounded lie where they fall. Stretcher parties cannot cross ground swept by fire, and thousands of men will spend this day and the next, and in some cases several more, dying slowly in craters within shouting distance of their own line. A large share of those deaths come from bleeding that the future ends in under a minute. He crawls from man to man with tourniquets and packed dressings, doing the medicine of his own century in the mud of this one, and the arithmetic is merciless in both directions. Each man he reaches gets hours or a lifetime that history had already collected. His kit treats perhaps a dozen before it runs dry, on a morning that produces 57,470 British casualties, 19,240 of them dead, the worst single day the British Army has ever had. The afternoon hardens what the morning decided. La Boisselle holds. Most of the northern front holds. Far to the south, where the guns had genuinely cut the wire, British divisions take Mametz and Montauban, proof the plan could work wherever the bombardment did what it promised. Then night comes down on the wreckage, and night is the one part of this day that answers to him alone. The rescue work that darkness shuts down for every other man on the front is precisely the work his night vision reopens. He spends those hours guiding stretcher parties across ground nobody else can navigate, back to craters he fixed in his memory during daylight, doing quietly in the dark what the entire British army could not do at noon. Midnight then, and the pricing of a century. He is alive, which in this wave, on this sector, borders on the statistically impossible. His front plate is cracked, his ammunition is nearly gone, his medical kit is empty, and roughly 24 machine gunners and riflemen did not survive the day's acquaintance with him. Perhaps a dozen British soldiers are breathing because he reached them in time. The line on the maps at headquarters has not moved 1 meter on his account. That is the whole exchange, and it deserves a precise reading. The armor worked, the optic worked, the medicine worked. The thing that kept him alive above all of them was the one piece of equipment 1916 refused to issue to its infantry: the freedom to leave the line, read the ground, and act on his own judgment. 140 more days of the Somme are still to come, and more than 1 million men from all its armies will be killed, wounded, or lost before the battle ends. One man from the future, given the best of everything, could carry a single day of it and set it down again, having saved exactly the people within reach of his own 2 hands. On the 1st of July, 1916, that is what the future is worth.